All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. So, a lot of you are probably wondering, where is the tier list? Where have I been? What happened? I put out that other video explaining how I do the tier list, and then the tier list did not happen. So, quick explanation, I got COVID and I've been sick since like before Christmas. And I'm just now getting better. So, I wanted to do this shorter video to be kind of go easy on myself while I'm still recovering. And then very soon, I will have the tier list actually done. I got sick on like the day I planned to record it. Apologies. But we get to talk about BARUUK Prime's builds refresh today. Because BARUUK Prime is new. There's now a Prime and no longer just a only regular BARUUK. So, therefore, I have invested way too much into this build. And we're going to go over a lot of the alternative things you can do, but we're also going to show off the dumb bullshit that I have put together. So, of note, this is a full Umbral build. Now, here's the thing about that. I have tested quite a bit with a bunch of different variations of this, and if you want to make a way, way cheaper version of this build, doing this is pretty much identical in terms of what you're going to get on the output part, unless you're going like insanely far into Endless or whatever, and in those cases, maybe Adaptation even performs better in some cases. But I'm using the full Umbral build because I think it's funny for the most part. But normally, I would probably be much more inclined to go with something like this. Honestly, you don't even really need the Umbral Vitality. There are some cases where, like my old build, I would actually prefer to have Rolling Guard. But it's also really, really nice to have the full Umbral build because you get to just very simply not care about any enemies at all, especially at lower levels. This gives you kind of the freedom to be like, do whatever you want and like really not care in any way. Even if you like forget to turn your 3 on in low level and regular Star Chart missions, it's not going to matter. Like they are not going to get through this much armor and this much health. And it's just very, very unlikely if you're even playing BARUUK in those low levels. And in Steel Path, I haven't found his survivability to be in question really anywhere. So it's really up to taste what survivability mods you take. The double Umbrals does give me more strength, which does give me more damage, but it is by far like not required. Like it is very much do not worry about it. You do not need to go double Umbral and go like whole hog on this. The rest of the mods in this build, however, I would pretty much say you've got to have. We have Stretch and Augur Reach. Those are for lull so that we can have a large range so that we can get our meter built quite quickly. And then we have, of course, our Efficiency, just so we can spam abilities and build that meter up really quickly. And Transient Fortitude for a good chunk of strength and also lowering that duration so that we can spam lull pretty often. It is worth noting, another option if you want lull to be more crowd control is just to swap in Prime Continuity instead of Umbral Fiber. This will give you enough duration where this is like a pretty reasonable stun. 14 seconds is going to be more than you're going to need in a lot of cases. So that's pretty comfortable if you wanted to go with that. That's another alternate on this build that's going to be quite good. Now, the Subsume on this build, we have gone with Theros Strike. So this is Stynax's ability, and getting an extra Stynax is kind of a huge pain in the ass. You'll be happy to know that Theros Strike, while really nice, and there's, you know, certain things that you're going to want this for, such as doing Steel Path Void Cascade, or smacking around the Acolytes and removing all of their defenses, you don't need it. BARUUK can kill those enemies even without this. This just makes it way more convenient, and there's not a ton of different options that BARUUK can really run with this low duration and the other stats that he wants. There are some other options, like you could go with like Fire Blast as an armor strip, but I think Theros Strike is just better. There's a few things here and there, and you can really pick to taste. And honestly, Empower, which just gives you a raw 50% extra strength, is going to be more than most people are going to even need on BARUUK in most cases, because you can hit that, then of course go into Serene Storm and just have plus 50% strength, way more strength available, way more damage done. So yeah, it's pretty simple. We basically just went like hilarious overinvestment. The only thing otherwise that is important to note is Energize is nice for energy economy, but very much not necessary. And then Arcane Strike, the extra attack speed is very much appreciated, and there's a change I would make to his melee weapon. If you do not run Arcane Strike, I would add more speed on this. instead of running Volcanic Edge. So if you don't have Arcane Strike, probably would drop Volcanic Edge. Also, over-optimization, if you're into it. Me personally, I am not, and most people aren't. You can run a Smite mod. The Smite mod is going to objectively be better than Volcanic Edge, but you have to switch it out depending on what faction you're on, and it's just annoying, and nobody wants to do that. So just run this. This will kill everything anyway, so not a big deal. Of note, we are running Corrupt Charge, which normally you wouldn't run. This is plus 30 initial combo, and what that essentially does is it lets us have our combo on our melee weapon. Well, of course, you can't see it now because I'm not in my 4. But whenever you're in your 4, it keeps you at a 2x combo. That adds a little bit of damage, and it's actually, you know, it's actually pretty relevant. It's a reasonable chunk of damage that you're adding to your Desert Wind. But it also allows us to use the Venka Prime as a stat stick, because right now, the way that the Venka Prime has been used as a stat stick for BARUUK is you run this build, you build a bunch of combo, you run Naramon, and then you get a bunch of extra crits, and your numbers are very, very red, so you can crit a whole lot with your Serene Storm. That doesn't work if you hit an enemy with the actual fist part of Desert Wind, because you'll hit an enemy and then the combo will run out, and that will like cancel out and make everything stop working for whatever reason, because stat sticks and the way that exalted weapons work are a huge mess that needs to be worked on and probably fixed. But the way around that is to simply run Corrupt Charge, because you never go below 2x combo, which makes things continue to work. Also, a weird bug that I've noticed is if you are doing that, where you're using the Venka Prime to build up that combo, and you're using Naramon to keep that combo up, and you're getting the big red crits, occasionally, whenever you swing Thorough Strike, for whatever reason, it will stop working. And then if you swing Thorough Strike again, it will start working again. I do not know why. There is no rhyme or reason to that, but sometimes you're going to have to cast Thorough Strike twice to make it so your stat stick works. Luckily, you actually really don't need to worry about the stat stick stuff at all, and you could completely and entirely ignore it, and BARUUK is going to have more than fine damage. Most of the time I'm playing BARUUK, I really do not care about it, because it's just like an extra step in the process that is totally unnecessary, and we don't have something that's convenient like the Zorus anymore to bolster that and make it so we don't have to worry about like the combo, and make it so we don't have to run fucking Naramon anymore. So it's probably more trouble than it's worth, but it is worth discussing here. Otherwise, we're Monkman, and we punch people real good-like. So we're just going to throw these 190s up. I'm going to hit my 3s so that I do not do any of the dying. I'm going to hit my 2s so these enemies go to sleep and I build some meter. And then we are going to punch them very, very hard. This is without, of course, using the stat stick at all. These are level 190s, which pretty accurately simulates the starting level in the Steel Path. And you can see that they pretty much stand no chance whatsoever. This AoE is gigantic and fantastic, and yeah, it's huge. It will kill everything. It's what you're looking for. But yeah, other than that, the only thing of note is that I did test this BARUUK build in Steel Path Void Cascade. Of note there, it is hard to keep his meter up because spawn levels are just so atrociously low in that game mode. So while he does have like the damage for it, and Thorough Strike of course gives him the armor strip that you'd want to have access to do that mission, it's really annoying to keep his meter up, so I'd probably suggest still bringing something else, though he is very capable of doing it, especially if you very simply just like use his 3 for survivability, and then use his 1 for armor stripping, and then just bring a gun that can kill the Thrax, then he's going to be perfectly fine for that. But you'll kind of miss out on the point of playing BARUUK, in my opinion, which is, of course, his 4. Anyway, that's what's up. I'm going to let you guys go to the Steel Path run, as it were, where we are going to punch very many mans, and it is going to be very, very easy. Hey, quick sidebar. I wanted to talk about Archon Shards. Obviously, I have not put any Archon Shards into BARUUK Prime, and that is because, as you can see, I have a colossal shortage of red shards, which is what BARUUK wants 5 of. You can put all melee critical damage into BARUUK. This will give you hilarious funny numbers, and is probably actually the literal best thing you can do, as melee critical damage is kind of a hard stat to get, and he's big on the criticals, as you will assuredly see later in this video, depending on where I put it. So that's the thing. The melee critical damage is more damage than any amount of strength you're going to get from these shards, especially if they're all Tau Forged. That melee critical damage just gets real critical. Other things to consider, though, Amber Shards. Always parkour velocity is a consideration. I would not consider casting speed, personally. Also, you can do like the yellow shard variant of having energize, which is plus 50% effectiveness of energy orbs if you feel like your energy economy isn't good enough. Other than that, you can, of course, if you would like to meme very hard, you can give BARUUK a bunch of health shards and bring your health over 1,000. That's funny, and honestly, considering the 5 shards I have laying around, might be what I do. But definitely the best for performance is going to be that melee critical damage, and it's what I have suggested on my site over at brozime.com if you've not checked it out. Time for punching. Apologies that I have not done this one on stream. Usually that's been the case more recently, is that I've done this on stream, but for this one, trying to get this out there so I can move on to the tier list as soon as possible, ideally, so I'm sure you guys will understand.
Predictable. As expected, Grenier have shut down the environmental systems, sending modified life support capsules. Use these to sustain your environment or attach Kuga catalysts to begin harvesting.
Punch, punch, punch. You can see it just like eliminating all the enemies that it interacts with pretty much. Get good chunks of meter. Obviously, BARUUK is one of those frames where you can kind of get cannibalized by your teammates like performing too well, and too well, quote unquote, of course, where you won't have like the enemy density you want. And also in low level missions, it can sometimes be a pain in the ass to get the enemy density that BARUUK wants as well. But here in the Steel Path, especially in the Kuba Fortress, which has excellent spawns, one of the best tiles, or what tile sets rather, in the game. So hard to go wrong with this one. It's honestly the reason I gravitate to it so often, is because it's just like so consistent with what it gives me. Also, other thing that's nice about Thera Strike, you can use it to heal. If you, for whatever reason, don't have like a built-up operator and you're capable of putting this build together, you can use a Thera Strike to heal. So if you notice you're a little low on health, you can just smack a dude and get all your health back real quick, which is quite nice. Oh, also in terms of, especially to talk about like the combos on BARUUK, normally, best practice, just mash E. Just mash E is quite good. It's going to move you forward just a little bit. Forward E, which is this, very slightly different, has like the one big pulse and moves you forward pretty considerably more. Both of those, very good. Other than that, your blocking combo, this one is like a suction thing, and its damage is pretty alright. But it's otherwise pretty underwhelming, and it's going to keep you in place. Sometimes all right for single targets, though, and like especially if you're like in a circle, sometimes it can be good to use that vacuuming effect, but it's normally not necessary. And then we have the forward blocking, which the forward blocking, it applies lift, which we all know is complete dog shit. Like, it's probably the worst part of the melee rework. Obviously, you can see that it works, but more often than not, it's just actually going to get enemies out of the way of your punches and make it more of a pain to kill them. So there's that as well. Also, just realized something. I totally forgot to bring a companion again because I was doing Captura. What a dream. I'm sure it's not actually really going to matter because our energy economy is insanely good with BARUUK, especially with Energize. I don't know if I mentioned actually in the builds portion of the video, you very, very much do not need Energize. Absolutely not required at all. You will run into situations, of course, with without Energize, where occasionally you'll just be unlucky, especially if you're spamming your 2 a ton. But more often than not, you're just going to be flush with energy, especially if you're, in a situation where you're killing many, many mans. See the new Eximus, because I believe my previous BARUUK video was before new Eximus. I think that's right. You can see them surviving a little bit, but then, going down as expected. This room's a little awkward. I'm probably going to move out of here. BARUUK likes long hallways. He's a huge fan of them. Arson Eximus giving us a trouble or two. Not really. I mean, they get knocked down and they die. It's more so that they die a little slower. And this is all worth noting. This is all what you're going to be like getting from this build, without using your stat stick at all. Like, this has like pretty much no stat stick affecting this at all, because the only thing that matters for your stat stick is the combo. Building up the combo is the only thing that matters, and because of that, like this is what you'll see if you are not utilizing that in any way, shape, or form. However, if you decide to go for it, which I would suggest, the like hold right click and forward combo on this to build up combo. As you can see, it's already maxed out. Once we've built that up, numbers get very, very red. Very, very red, very, very fast. And it is, you know, a pretty reasonable damage boost. It's not like triple damage or anything like that, but in a lot of cases, it's going to be nearly double, which is pretty significant. Oh, don't have my 3 up. Even without my 3, it's pretty easy to survive. Give me my health back. Thank you. Yeah, also worth noting, this build, because it does not require a stat stick really at all, it's actually really easy to get going, and budget versions of BARUUK are actually quite solid. So now that BARUUK is unlocked from being behind Fortuna, which a lot of people do not want to do, understandably, of course, we may see a lot of new players be able to like kind of get in there with BARUUK, because I think BARUUK is likely the best exalted melee frame. I don't think there's much argument in the way of other things, if I'm honest. We have Misery, who is going to die very quickly. I'm gonna try the heavy attacks on Misery. It's been a little bit since I've tried the heavies with this. Dunk. Oh, that's pretty good. It's been a little bit since I tried that one. That worked out okay. I think that's fine. Yeah, that's also actually one of the benefits of having Corrupt Charge, is that we actually get way more heavy attack damage than we would normally. Although you can see, using those heavies seems to have reset my usage here, but if I just quickly swap on, swap off, it should work again. That's being weird. Yeah, the connection between, like, luckily it doesn't really matter, but the connection between like the stat stick working properly or not is pretty rough. Ideally, at some point in the future, DE will decide to, you know, unify how the fuck all of the exalted stuff is actually supposed to function, and like do a pass on what's supposed to occur, and, you know, do the thing that most exalted melees really need, which is give them access to Blood Rush and let them build combo with their waves and so on and so forth, so that they can play more like the real melee weapons, like every other melee weapon in the game, and actually be, you know, enhanced versions of those, as opposed to usually kind of knockoff versions of regular melee weapons. But that's just me. I'm just saying. If anything is like the frustrating thing about BARUUK, it's not any part of his design, because his design is like very strong. What a strong Warframe. That much I think is very clear. Also, hey, my red crit started working again randomly. There they are. What a strong Warframe though. Like, what a just a good thing. What a good time, right? But just how his exalted weapon works, and like if the combo affects it or if it doesn't, or when it does or when it doesn't, that stuff is the annoying part of playing BARUUK, because sometimes it's just like, why isn't this working? Who can say? Who knows? Is it supposed to work? Who can say? Who knows? It has worked for, like, you know, since the last BARUUK video, which was quite a long time ago at this point, so perhaps it is supposed to function, but we never know. Not to go on an additional extra bonus ramp here, but even without a companion, we're having a real simple time. I guess it's worth noting, because I don't have a companion, if you're looking for a companion for BARUUK, the Vulpaphyla work really, really well. I don't feel personally that BARUUK needs more survivability, so I would probably tell you don't need a Sly Vulpaphyla, and to instead go with a Panzer, because you get the additional Saren AoE effect with that one. But really, any Vulpaphyla, just because they simply don't die, is going to be great. Although, the thing that is worth noting in terms of like using BARUUK, BARUUK is actually one of the frames that has an easier time bringing a Smida along, because your daggers will actually go to allies and support them, which includes the Smida, giving them a good chunk of damage resistance. And if you give them the rest of their survivability mods, reasonably often they're going to be actually able to survive. So that's a consideration. Also, it's really nice to have a BARUUK in the party because, like, just the additional DR from his 3, while it usually goes unnoticed because it's not super prominent, and also a lot of people don't even know what BARUUK does, honestly, so they'll have the daggers and just have no clue what's happening. But it's nice because, like, that additional bit of DR can often be quite helpful. Like, similar to how, like, you know, Wisps 1, if you've got the additional health from it, that's great. It's just a lot less noticeable, mostly because people just don't know what he does. Let's do it again. Oh, come on. Why you spawn up there? No, come back. Come back. This will only hurt for a moment. There it is. It's also very fun doing that as a sidebar. Yeah, no trouble with Acolytes. I don't know if that much is obvious or not. Pretty easy Acolyte killing time. Pretty chill experience, and that scales quite a bit. He of course does not have like truly scaling damage like a Zaku would, but the damage is high enough that like you're going to continue to have pretty much this experience for well into like an hour into survival. It's really not going to be a problem, and you can mostly ignore the damage from enemies, as I'm sure you've seen. But yeah, that's BARUUK. All right, credits time. I'd like to take this time to, of course, thank all of the super patrons, $10 plus patrons: Aidenson, Brutus Salazar, Donald Stevens, Dylan Dworsky, Ithrain, Jacob Bean, JC for Science, Jefferson Clark, Joshua Adams, Luzanth, Alec X. Williams, Petrazanka, Mitchta, Nicholas Gridley, Paradise, Shen Harden, Victor, and Zach Zahner. And of course, thank you to all of the $5 patrons and our $2 patrons in the credits as well. Thank you very much for helping support the channel. I very much appreciate it. And there should be a lot coming to the website going into the kind of new year here. We've got the big frame review on the horizon here and such. And of course, Varuna has been added to the site as well for easy going through all the business. Thanks, everybody.